Hello, everyone. Welcome back to RPA and Intelligent Automation Live. I'm Jose Perez, the chairperson, the founder and CEO of Excellence in Innovation. This session is a really interesting session. We're going to have Ray Phakay talking to us about robotics process automation. And the title of the session is, Does Robotics Process Automation Take Jobs Away? Ray Phakay, who is a solutions architect with Micro Focus, specializing in automation, orchestration, and cloud migration technologies. He has over 16 years of industry experience working with Fortune 500 companies. His current stint in IT operations management focuses on delivering automation solutions for enterprise environments with mission-critical infrastructure, helping organizations translate technology to real business value. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave you up with Ray Phakay in his presentation.
Thank you, Jose, and thank you everyone for joining us today on this session. I believe this session would be informational and you enjoy this. If you have any questions, please do write those down in the chat box and I would definitely be able to answer those later at the end. So without any further wait, let's get started with the session. So here's how the agenda is going to be for this session. We're going to briefly cover what RPA is, why do we need RPA, and what are the benefits. I'm sure all of you are from the domain and you know the benefits already, but it's just a brief setting up the stage to the main question, does RPA take jobs away? We're going to briefly cover the RPA market, how RPA is doing, what are the benefits, how we're seeing RPA products in the market and the services. Then the real question, the impact on jobs. Then we're going to look at a few use cases, how organizations are currently using RPA, and then look at a few requirements that we believe that any RPA solution should have, and quick demo for a Micro Focus RPA solution. Then at the end, we'll finish it off with the Q&A session. So let's get started. As we know, businesses and organizations around the world are embarking digital transformation. They aspire for continuous improvement and increased automation to become agile and more competitive. They're looking for new ways to increase their productivity, expand their outreach beyond their traditional customers and industries, and looking for new ways to add new revenue streams, implementing new solutions, and cutting out the unnecessary cost by improving the internal processes. But the reality is that their employees spend too much time working on the same mundane, repetitive, error-prone task every day in and day out. They're looking to do the same work, same monotonous activities several hours a day. They're opening emails and attachments, they're filling out forms, they're moving files and folders, copying and pasting data in and out of apps, preparing the data, manipulating it, merging it, etc. And these everyday manual processes are not just confined to a specific business or an industry. They actually span different departments and industries, from finance to insurance, from medical to telco, or for HR to e-commerce. These activities that range from, for example, month-end reconciliation in finance to claims processing in insurance, fulfilling service requests in a telco, or updating orders for e-commerce. These are just few examples. In fact, you will find that RPA use cases are so rich and diverse, and each one of them is based on customers' unique implementations. And these tasks just keep going like they have been for many, many years in the same repetitive manual fashion, because they're just used to it, or they often involve legacy applications which are difficult to automate. So Robot comes to the rescue and offers a solution to these challenges. How? Let's first review what RPA is in context to this discussion. RPA, or robotic process automation, uses software robots that mimic or stimulate all those human actions performed on any user interface by a human being. With RPA, you have the ability to record screen actions, and these recordings are nothing but extremely flexible scripts that you can insert into workflows to create end-to-end processes that are truly fully automated. Now, when do we need RPA? Well, here's a great example. In the screenshot, you can see the reality which we don't get to see as a customer when we call a bank or a telco. We need RPA when we want to automate existing systems and applications without disrupting the way we work, with minimal changes, without having to go through expensive and lengthy system integrations. RPA is not a part of company's core IT infrastructure. Instead, It sits on top of those applications and systems, helping companies to implement automation and technologies quickly and efficiently. You look at RPA when you don't have a way to easily integrate legacy applications which have no API or very difficult or complicated IPA. So RPA, by definition, is all about return on investment, how soon a process can be automated without changing the way we work or the process, without changing how these applications function. And we are looking to realize the value in terms of increased productivity and hours saved. Simply put, it's just another computer software deployed by an organization to execute high volume repetitive tasks. Now, robots have many benefits, as we all know. They interact with applications and systems just like humans do, but they're faster, they're more accurate, they're highly secure, and they never sleep. Potentially can work 24/7. This means that the quality of work goes up while the cost of maintaining the processes goes down dramatically. And the robots also free up the employees from their mundane, repetitive tasks so they can focus on more meaningful things and contributing more to the business. All in all, business becomes more efficient, gain competitiveness, which is what most businesses are aiming for. And in today's world, where businesses have cutthroat competition, they're always looking for ways to cut out the cost, ways to step ahead of their competition and increase their market share and value of the organization. Let's look at the RPA market in general. Forrester predicted that automation would become the tip of the digital transformation spear in 2019, impacting everything from infrastructure to customers to business models. RPA being a subset of the whole automation space, they predict that RPA service market continue to grow and will top $12 billion by 2023. Enterprises are expected to spend $3 on services for every dollar spent on RPA software. Increasing demand for business process automation through the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning, as well as software robots, is anticipated to be the key growth driver. That being said, what is the impact of RPA on job market? Well, RPA is considered to be a double-edged sword. While on one hand, it may take away jobs, it will also create new high-quality skill jobs. RPA may lead to some job losses, but more importantly, it will enable employees to be more productive, to be able to focus on tasks which require human intervention and intelligence, as against working on the same mundane, repetitive tasks. RPA is more of an opportunity rather than a threat. It is the opportunity to unleash human creativity to do more meaningful tasks. According to a report by McKinsey Global Institute, 2/3 of all jobs could have at least 30% of their activities automated by 2030. It is expected to replace up to 140 million full-time employees worldwide by 2025. However, many of the new high-quality jobs will be created for those who create, maintain, improve RPA and automation software and those business processes. Let's look at some of the industry use cases and how RPA has been implemented successfully. This is a multinational investment and financial services company. They use web-based legacy application to collect information about disputed transactions. This application holds huge paginated tables across different screens with thousands of records. There is no way to filter or sort the data or export it, so everything got to be done manually. Prior to implementing an RPA solution, a manager would spend up to 2 hours scrolling through multiple screens, printing out disputed cases from the application screen, and then assigning them to different team members. Now, interestingly, the current process included printouts, which exposed sensitive information as well as the credit card numbers. And the case assignment was driven by various criteria, for example, time to resolution, etc., and to keep up with compliance. With the implementation of RPA's solution, they observed, just like a human would, the robot navigates in the legacy application, grabs thousands of records, sorts and prioritizes the cases by bank and by the team member, and then generates and emails the report. In a way, robot prepares the to-do report for human employees. Each tab in the report lists the cases assigned to each team member. In fact, the report also encrypted the credit card numbers, which helped improve the security as the team members were contractors and not internal employees. In addition, the robot also generated daily and weekly dashboards showing number of cases received by the bank, number of cases processed by the robot to help manager review progress, review the outcomes of the process, and prioritize the cases while extracting urgent cases for processing. In this case, we can see the RPA solution was improving the efficiency of the business process while freeing up managers' time so he may focus on more higher value tasks like improving the business process, taking care of his team and team members, boosting employee morale, etc. These are all higher value tasks rather than doing the same monotonous task of creating the report and sending it over. Now let's change verticals and see a different use case here. This is a multinational media company that offer customer live streaming services for a wide selection of channels and on-demand premium media content. This media company offer thousands of products, and to make this rich content available, they work with various different partners. And now here's their challenge. They use Siebel for internal processes and use Salesforce for managing their customers. They've got 20 full-time workers spending hours copying and pasting the catalog information from Siebel to Salesforce. Now, how do they do that? Well, they access multiple tabs, copy paste data into an Excel, then use another Excel to map the fields from Siebel to Salesforce, and finally manually enter the data into the Salesforce. Quite a lengthy, daunting, and complicated process that we may say. Just to let you know, one worker completes a catalog entry for one product in about an hour. So typically in an 8 hours working day, that means about 8 catalog updates per worker. And for those 20 workers combined, 160 catalog updates per day. They picked up this business process to be the pilot for their RPA implementation. And in results, they observed that the RPA solution was able to combine API and UI tasks in order to move the data from Siebel to Salesforce, including all those different steps. For example, the data mapping, exceptional handling, entering the data into Salesforce. And the product catalog entry for one product was completed in about 2 minutes. And the benefits they observed were obvious in this case. In about an hour, 30 catalog entry updates, and in 8 hours, about 140 catalog entry updates. And that itself is a 30-time increase in the efficiency if we compare to a single worker. Now, one may say that the jobs of those 20 workers, or at least some of them, may come at stake now that the robots are able to perform their activities. And that might very well be true initially. But on the other hand, these workers are subject matter experts for the business process and these legacy applications. They know the business process more than anybody else. They know how to work these applications and act if there's an exception or an error, which robots may not be capable or equipped to handle until being trained or programmed. And they always be needed to improve the business process, create new flows and automation scripts for RPA to implement. Let's look at one more different use case here. Here we have a telecommunications company. In this case, we see the customers of this multinational telco stop paying for the services as soon as they submit a request for decommissioning. However, the company continues to incur charges and fees for third-party providers and local operators until the decommission is fully processed. The lengthy manual administrative process behind decommissioning could take up to several weeks. With implementation of RPA, they observe they could automate the whole business process from initial email notification to pre-validation and classification of data. RPA was able to run the actual service request fulfillment across all different applications, in this case, Salesforce and Netcracker, and send automatic decommission emails to third-party providers. So it's able to complete the full loop in a single flow. They were able to reduce the processing time from several weeks to just few days, thereby eliminating the unnecessary payouts for the services not rendered. Also, it reduced employee efforts tremendously by automating the monotonous process of copying, pasting information from one system to another to create the service requests and send notification emails. As a result of the RPA solution, they observed twice the efficiency and could process 250 decommission requests per month as against 108. So they were able to realize the return on investment on their RPA solution instantaneously. And with the successful pilot, the organization was encouraged to implement more processes and automate more business processes if possible. Now let's look at some of the capabilities that we believe are required in an RPA solution. A good RPA solution should be a single scalable enterprise-ready solution that can handle the workload and help you build, secure, and scale automated business processes from legacy to modern application across the enterprise. According to us, it should include these three logical components in some form or shape: a studio that provides an interface for building and maintaining automated processes, including a recorder for screen actions, so that you can visualize the business process activities and automate those. The orchestrator, which acts like the brain of RPA, executing all RPA flows and manages and controls the robot while logging all their actions for audit and compliance. And finally, the robot itself, which executes the robotic task, interacting with the application and the data. Building on to those core components, these are a few key features that we include in an RPA solution. Our RPA solution comes with easy to use Design Studio. In this intuitive visual design interface, you have the ability to launch the activity recorder to record screen actions. And then once the recording is available, you can edit, parameterize, and debug all from single screen, automating the whole business process from start to end, combining the API and UI task. We have resilient robots that can keep processing the flows even when the UI changes, so customers spend a lot less time on maintenance. They don't have to re-record the flows or activities every time there's an update to the application or the page layout changes or a field in the form is relocated. The smart robots is able to adapt to those changes using advanced object recognition capabilities and keep going and keep performing. Central robot orchestration that combines UI and API automation steps while managing and controlling the robots centrally. It also provides access to rich library of out-of-the-box API content and coordinate the work between multiple robots. You can also apply advanced workflow logic for decision-making, parallel processing, and error handling. It gives you the ability to orchestrate, run, schedule, and monitor your robots from a central dashboard, making it highly capable. And a user-friendly self-service portal is a must for attended bot use cases, so users can initiate and run the flows on demand when needed. For scalability, having a worker-based queue architecture gives the ability to scale the robots up and down as the workload changes. This architecture manages a pool of resources and hand off robotic requests to available robots. Each robot works independently and it has its own communication in the queue. As the workload changes, you have the ability to bring additional robots to increase capacity and parallel processing. And once the requirement or the peak is over, you can scale those robots down as needed. And at the end, enterprise level security to run your business securely. Robots have unique IDs and role-based credentials. They run on locked screens, use encrypted passwords, and automate processes without exposing sensitive data. So you also have the ability to track all the actions in detailed logs, all in real time for any audit or compliant purposes. Let's see a quick demo of the solution here where we can combine the API and UI level steps. This is one of the most common use case for organizations which use Salesforce. In this demo, we'll be combining your API level automation steps as well as your UI level automation to create sales order in Salesforce based on the content received from an email. The end user can consume this automation on demand using the self-service portal, or you can have the process running completely automated where the robots actively monitor the mailbox looking for new emails for processing. When a new email is received, the robot then reads the email in Outlook and downloads the attachment, parses the data from Excel, and creates the Salesforce order in Salesforce using UI-based automation. And at the end, once the order is created, it sends an email report to the end user confirming the order numbers. So let's see all that in action. All right, so what you're looking at right now is the mailbox, which the robot is actively monitoring, and it would wait for the emails to come in. Suppose this was the email that just came in. It has an Excel file, which it would have the list of all the orders to be created. These are two simple orders that the robot is supposed to create. So as soon as this is received, the robot kicks in and it goes ahead and start creating those orders. And as you can see here, it's already read the email, it read the orders files, and now it's process of creating the first order. Let's see that in action. It punches all the information and then it's saving, and at the end it captures the order number for output, and then because we have two entries, it's run the process in loop to enter the second order. And once the order is completed, it goes ahead and sends the email to the end user. Let's look at that email. And that's the email that has been sent out to the user. It has the order numbers that are just being created by the robot. Let's see behind the scenes how this is being done, combining the API and UI level task. This is the workflow designer where you could go ahead and create the flows. So let's do a recording first for the Salesforce so we can teach the robot or how to do this process. Okay. And as we start recording, it launches the site, which is let's log in for the robot to know. And it's capturing all our steps. Let's go in orders, new order, put in the order details, hit save. And at the end, let's capture this order number for the output. All right, so these are all the steps that we did. There, you can see each and every step. Let's go ahead and remove all the hard-coded values and put in variables here. So a user can put in the details and the robot will be able to use those input values and create orders pertaining to that. Let's go ahead and remove these values and replace them with the variables we just created. Okay, and now that the recording is ready, let's go ahead and create the flow to create the entire process, business process end to end. Now we just did one recording. We just taught the robot to do one task, which is to do it in the Salesforce and create an order in the Salesforce. But you do have the ability to use the API level automations and combine that with the UI and do this. So let's get the email message and the attachments. Let's read the file. Then we use that information in the order to create the Salesforce order, send the email message, and create our workflow. Let's string these tasks together so they pass along the outputs of each step to the next step. For the first step, we're going to receive the attachment. For the next step, we're going to use and parse that attachment. Third step, we're going to run in loop because that's the recording, and if there's multiple entries, we want to process that. Let's save that information and deploy that to RPS Central, which is the brain of the robot orchestration. And from here, you can run the flows on demand using the self-service portal, or you can have the robot actively monitor the queue. So as soon as an email is received, it would go ahead and process the order and complete it. Okay, that's the end of the demo. And at this time, I'll take any questions if there are, Jose.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Ray. We do have questions that have come up, and I'll be relaying those to you. And if you you can still type your questions right now, as you have seen the end of Ray's demo. I'm gonna turn my camera so that you can see me during this, and I will relay the questions to Ray in real time here. Ray, going back to the title of the session. Lydia is asking, is knowing business processes enough to keep your job from the robots? Because can't these processes be learned by the robots themselves? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, truly saying, knowing the business process is not the only thing required to keep your job secure. Obviously, with advent of any technology, we have to move along. There's a harsh step, or I should say a saying which says adapt or die. If you don't adapt to the new technology, you're going to die with the old way. This is how you got to learn. And as we move along, none of us knew the cloud technologies. A decade ago, we did not know Azure or AWS or Google Cloud existed. We all learned how to use these cloud technologies. Same goes with machine learning and AI. We didn't know these technologies existed. We don't know how to write algorithm and codes. So we learned to adapt to these new technologies and made our job secure. And I believe that's the way to move forward. And I'll take a great illustration from one of the good movies I've seen recently, or actually it's in 2016, Hidden Figures. I don't know if anybody else has seen, where there are three women who they had a contribution to NASA. And one of the characters named Dorothy Wan was the lead of human computers. There was no computers at that time, and all the math calculations were supposed to be done by the human beings. And then NASA implemented the IBM supercomputer, and they were still trying to figure out how it's going to produce the output. It had some issues, and Dorothy Wan was able to resolve, learn, teach herself how to use that computer, and at the same time, she taught that thing to the entire team. So in a way, she found new jobs for her entire team, because they no longer will be using those human computers. They'll be using the IBM supercomputer to do those complicated calculations. So in my eye, you got to move with the technology. So it's always good to learn new things, and we being in the technology space, where every 6 months there's new softwares, new products, new solutions that keep coming in, and we gotta keep moving along with them. I believe
Very cool.
that should I believe that answers the question.
Good perspective. So Rohit is asking about you talked about the resilient robots, the uh, the adaptable robots, and specifically on he is interested on how does the an RPA auto detects if there is a UI change in a web page. Tell us a little bit about how that works.
So, I mean, there are some vendors which are recording screen positions on the screen, so where you click as to what is on the x-axis and what is on the y-axis. But at the end, if it's a web page, there has to be an object at the back end. So an RPA solution should be tracking the objects. It should know what object are we editing or changing, are we using in the RPA flow. So even if the object relocates on the page, for example, if it's on the top right hand side of the page and it moves to bottom left, or scrolling down to the end of the page, then the object still remains the same. And if we know and we can identify those objects uniquely, we would be able to track where it is in the current state on the new layout, and we'll be able to enter that with no problem. So the point is to be able to use that technology which is able to track the objects and use that object information instead of just the position of the cursor on the screen.
Yeah, and just a question, are these robots that are able to adapt to these changes, are these the standard robots offer, or these are special types of robots that have some, built-in additional capabilities in them?
So this is standard on our solution that we know of. Obviously, there are multiple vendors in the market, and I'm sure they're all trying to implement AI and machine learning to track all that changes and process those requests. We obviously want the robots to be able to perform just in case there's a little change, and we know the application have updates and the web page gets updated ever so often, in the recent times. So definitely the robot should be able to track this, and we do have this in our solution. That is what I can say.
Very good. So lots of questions coming in, which is great. So one of the questions is related to compliance and risks change with RPA being implemented. Tell me about your experience with compliance and risk associated with RPA implementations.
Well, compliance, I mean, there's always risk involved with anything that is handed over to robots, because at times we don't know what is going on. We don't see it. We can't hold a human being responsible for doing those steps. But a good practice is to have logs and audits, to be able to check what the robot is doing. So if a robot, any process, if we have some kind of log to track how each and every step is being performed, and if we have detailed logs which has the inputs and the outputs of the action, that would give us a good accountability for the robots as to what it's doing. So that gives us the ability to stay compliant and be able to perform those tasks. And at the end of the day, obviously we need to hit the SLAs or the business objectives that the business is trying to solve, because that's where the dollar value comes in. And I was just there on Rajesh's session. I mean, you have to convince the business to be able to promote this, because again, RPA, as the title says in the beginning, it has a, a, a block right there that it's going to take away my job. So you have to have uh, uh, you have to convince the business that it's really bringing some tangible business benefits to you, some values in terms of efficiency, some cost reduction or something. So business is motivated to implement that, and at the same time, you have to communicate better for your team. So, and tell them that there's a next path forward for the team, which task has been given away to the robots. There's more that these people can do.
That's good. That's good. Good insights. Regarding the demo itself, that was interesting. That was nice for you to share that and gives us kind of behind the scenes on what's going on there. And Michael Levine was asking just to confirm which RPA tool you use on that demo.
So this was our own RPA solution, Micro Focus. And even though our solution was just released about a year ago, so it might not be available on the analyst reports, but Micro Focus is the seventh largest pure pay software company in the world, and it has various different technologies that it's developed over these years. UFT is one of the testing solutions that is one of the cores of our solution, which is doing the recording, and those resilient robots is a capability of UFT, a solution by Micro Focus, as well as operations orchestration, one of the most powerful orchestration solution that we have, which has a lot of API level automations out of the box. So you don't have to create those tasks. You can just use pre-created tasks which are already provided to you from our R&D department or from the user community, which is available on our marketplace, and you can just reuse those, and as well as any automation you can find on Cloud Slang. So you could just download those, and you have the ability to merge those into other orchestration like Ansible or IntelliJ. So you could just merge all those orchestration automation tools and create a flow of those activities where there's an easier way to do things, not have to record each and every task, just record the task which is required only on the US side, but you still have API level access, so might as well use those automations technologies that has been developed over these years.
Very good, very good. And following up on that, Erwin Verdonk asked that based on the demo, it looks like a business analyst or trained operational staff would be able to configure the robot for what you did there, which was nice. And then he asks, in which cases you require to have IT developers involved to set up the RPA?
So as mentioned, we are combining the API level task with UI level. So UI level task is obviously the subject matter expert for that business process. They know which application am I using, at what point I'm bringing the input from previous step to the next step, and where in what form I am putting that information. But at the same time, we're using API level automations, which is, let's say I want to grab some input from Outlook. How do I do that? So there's API level automation where IT has knowledge of, or copying, pasting a file, that's a function available in our flows. So how do you use those functions to create a path or network share? How to access that network share through the API level? That's where IT would come in and augment these recordings and make them even bigger to complete the end-to-end orchestration.
Very good. Jonathan Glennie has a question focused on that API and UI automation that you just referred to. When you're looking at API and UI automations, maybe if you back up a little bit, what are the top considerations that you take into account when you're combining API and UI?
So the first output or the result we are looking for is end-to-end orchestration or end-to-end completion of the business flow. So there are possibilities that whatever vendor you're using for RPA may not be able to do a certain process, or they do not have automation on certain technology. So you need to find out as to what the solution can do and not do. So that's one thing you are looking at. And then with regards to at what is your API, when at one do you use API? So you are looking for the path of least resistance. You're looking to automate your business process as soon as you can, as easily as possible, without changing any underlying technologies or softwares or the process you use. So with regards to that, you are trying to find the ways which is the simplest way to automate a particular step. I mean, it could be possible that, it's easy to use UI instead of API. I don't know how to play around with the API, so I don't want to even take that route. I just want to use the UI automation, use that as a sub-step, and then move along and use another UI. So you have to understand what the process is, what's the business process, and what is the path of least resistance, and which is the best, automation technology you would like to use, whether it would be AI, API level automation or UI level automation.
Very good, very good. And then let's talk a little bit. Megan Glick has a question about scaling bots. What are your suggestions for organizations for scaling and sustaining the bots that they have already created? They created the bots and now they're looking for scaling and sustaining those bots. Any practical recommendations for that?
So, you need to first understand, for scaling purpose, you need to understand, what is your normal workload that the robots is processing? Is your current robots okay to, or are they okay to handle the current workload they have? At what point there is a rise in the requirement? Is there a particular pattern that you can, you have that, for example, at X time or X hour during the day, I have so many requests, my robot, I need more processing power at that time. Can you schedule that? So in that way, you have the ability to, push more robots for parallel processing, or you do have the ability to, leave those robots, in available for grabbing any work, but that's wasting resources. Let's say you only need 10 robots at this time, but you have 20 deployed because your peak uses 20 robots, but that 10 robots are just sitting there waiting for the task to come in, and they're being underutilized. The better way to do is to understand when is your peak coming, and then just before that, you launch some extra machines or which has robots on it, and then you launch those robots for that specific time period where you have the peak, and then once the peak is over, you shut them down or you take them away from the queue. So you save resources there. So that's the right way to scale the robots, scale up and down as your workload changes.
Very good. Follow up on Rohit's question about the auto detect on the RPA. You know, he asked originally about if there's a UI change in a web page, how does an RPA auto detect? And then specifically, he was interested if there are newer objects. Are the bots able to identify or work around those newer objects on a page?
So the question comes if we are going to use the newer objects. So if there's a new field that comes in a form, and do you need to fill in that field? Or do you need to enter some new information in that field or capturing that details? That essentially is adding a new step that the robot needs to do. So in the previous task, this field did not exist. So robot did not know about this field, and it didn't know what it's supposed to do with that. But in the newer form, I presume what Rohit is trying to say is there's a new field, and we are either capturing the information from that field or putting some information in that field. That in turn adds another step. So an RPA solution should be able to either add or remove steps from that existing recording. So that's minimum level of maintenance. At any point that would require some maintenance if you're using that object. So you would either be adding a new step to use the information coming out of that object, or putting the information in that object. So I mean, you could do the whole recording end to end one more time. That's where you would add the new object to be used, or you could edit the existing recording and see if that's the way you would like to lead, and that's how you would handle the new object.
Very good, very good. I don't know if you have experience with RPA for SOX compliance. Sundar was asking about that on how good is RPA for SOX compliance. Any experience you have on that area?
I can't recall any cases on that at this point for SOX compliance.
But
No.
I'm assuming that compliance
Yeah.
is compliance, right? It's just
Yeah.
that the process behind the compliance process is going to be different. But I would assume that from an RPA perspective, wouldn't you imagine it's the same approach?
Well, all the compliance would have the similar approach. You're basically capturing some kind of, inputs from something, and then you compare if it's compliant or not. And then if you're not compliant, you push some kind of remediation tasks to make that compliant. So that remediation task can basically be implemented by the robot. So these remediation could be installing a patch, installing or changing some values, or making some new changes to your application or the devices. So that task can be done by the robots without a problem. Yes.
Very good. More of on a personal development side here, personal and professional development side. Zenkena was asking on what would be your suggestion for someone who is a quality professional, a Lean Six Sigma practitioner, and they're looking to upskill or learn more about RPA. How, what would be a good way of getting started to stay relevant? Of course, these individuals, I think it's implicit in the question here is that these professionals have a lot of insights on methodologies and approaches to business process improvement, and as they want to become more conversational and use RPA, any suggestions on how people make that transition from being a process improvement expert to becoming more adaptable to RPA and its applications?
So I would believe that they already have half the puzzle, which is how to improve the process or how to implement these steps. The next step is to implement it or to deploy the RPA solution. So they need to understand how each and every step in the improvement process is implemented, and how they map to the steps within the RPA solution. So knowledge of an RPA solution would definitely be added plus. It would depend as to what RPA solution they plan to implement. I mean, there are various different vendors, but in terms of the terminology and the common platform they use, you need to understand, what is the best practice to convert that process into an actionable step that can bring a change, and then how do you link each and every step to complete the whole business process automation. And I believe that's the change not just with any RPA, solution. It's about the whole automation space, from any previous way of doing things to the new way of doing things. How do you do that in the new automation, space?
Very good. So I'll ask one final quick question here. I mean, RPA is there are lots of applications right now. I mean, the field itself is evolving. I think the bots are evolving. I mean, you're talking about smart, resilient bots now. And share with us, what do you see coming up? What is there an evolution for RPA here that you see, and not necessarily in the next 5 years, but next year or so? What do you see the industry trending towards?
So the industry is training about, discovering the business process. So, we understand what RPA can do for us, but what is the right candidate to, implement RPA? What are the business processes which RPA can implement, where they can realize the business value and give you the efficiencies and the results instantaneously? So that's the hard part. All businesses have several different business processes that they believe, oh, I can automate this or I can automate another process. But what are the right candidates? Choosing the right candidate is for RPA is the way. Now the technology is moving towards how you can find and uncover those business processes on its own. So first, the initial step was a business process lead would tell you, okay, this is my business process, this is how I do things, this is how I need to automate it. But a software that can detect this process automatically, if you run a software in the environment, that can detect the whole business process and help you map each and every step in the business process to actual step within the RPA, that gives you a base or a layout on which you can build on. And that's where the technology is heading towards on that discovery front. We have the capabilities to do it. We need to find more use cases. That's where the technology is heading, as well as adding more capabilities in the deployment phase, adding machine learning and artificial intelligence, able to handle all those exceptions where the page changes and stuff. So the robots become more and more independent, as well as they're able to handle all those errors, doesn't need more maintenance. The more they function, the more value we gain out of the whole RPA solution.
Ray Phakay, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. Very, very helpful to learn about all these very practical approaches to RPA. Thank you very much. For all of you who are in the session, we're going to close the session right now. We'll open back up at the top of 5 minutes to the top of the hour. And as you close the session, use your control panel close button. A little window will pop up. If you have any questions or feedback, enter those in there. And at the top of the hour, we'll have Dr. Ash Pawa from the California Institute of Technology talking to us about cloud and computing for data analytics and applications. So should be very interesting last session for today. And I hope to see you back then. Bye-bye.